Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the BATTER'S Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The BATTER'S Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the BATTER'S Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Hi everybody, coming up next on Pit Pass with Larry Woody, we've got a special guest who is literally a walking encyclopedia of racing knowledge from almost every venue you can imagine, every type. We'll share who that is coming up. Also, preseason thunder at Daytona. Did we learn anything? Yeah, we learned the big one can still be there. And of course, we may actually talk about IndyCars in Nashville. Yeah, we'll do that and more coming up next on Pit Pass.
From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
All Cooper CPAs, located in the heart of East Nashville, offer a wide variety of tax services for individuals and businesses. Contact them at 615-257-0646 and visit their website, allcooper.com, for a full list of services.
Microcasting for your city. Talkopolis.
Well, hello everybody and welcome in to Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams along with my longtime idol Larry Woody. And between us, Larry, a special guest this week, literally a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. One of the most humble men that you'll ever meet, but he knows more about racing both from Nashville to the national and international levels than probably, in all honesty, I know this sounds big, but probably anywhere in this country for sure. Russ Thompson is our special guest, and Russ, it is good to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. It's good to be here with y'all. I've watched 4 or 5 of the shows, and y'all got a good thing going here, and I just appreciate you having me on.
I wonder if you did like in the old days when I was at the Tennessee, and every time I'd screw something up, Russ would send me a note and say, you had this wrong, and underline it. No, seriously, Joe, at the Tennessee, and I've told Russ this for 40 years, if I had a question or was stumped and I needed an answer, whether it's local racing, Nashville, whatever, I called Russ Thompson, and he had the answer. I could never stump him.
Yeah, and what folks don't understand, when we talk about the wealth of talent that has come out of Nashville, from drivers to crew chiefs to officials to writers, broadcasters, etc. What folks don't understand is, this is kind of the linchpin. We're going to pick on you a little bit here, Russ. This is kind of the linchpin. For the past 30 years, he's been traveling around, and as I explained to somebody earlier, when those guys on the race broadcast sound like they're brilliant and they know everything and they've memorized all these record books. No, they haven't. Russ is sitting there handing them a card.
Like he did me.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that? I mean, you go, what's the official title of that position on a broadcast?
Statistician and historian.
Okay. And when did you start as a statistician historian?
First race I ever worked was the 1988 All-American 400 here at Nashville.
And the big time, you moved up with Network, ABC. When did you start that, Russ?
1994. This will be my 20th year doing IndyCars for Network.
And this year you're traveling the circuit, the entire IndyCar circuit. Still do some, it's interesting, I didn't know this, you work on your stats from home, don't you?
Yeah.
And provide those for a lot of the NASCAR races.
Right, do all the Cup and all the nationwide races from home, and got a call as I was driving here today about doing the 24 hours of Daytona, so.
Now here's the scary part, Larry. How good is Russ Thompson as a statistician historian? When ESPN goes to do the race from Australia, they do most of it from a studio in Charlotte, and they call Russ Thompson and say, get over here. And it's literally a long-range thing. The 24 hours of Daytona coming up. He said that. I said, man, you're going to love Daytona. You know what it's like in February. And he goes, I'm not going to Daytona. You're going to do all this from your home here in Nashville.
Yeah.
How is that technology? Is that not is that a positive for you from a technological standpoint? You don't have to be gone so much?
That part's nice. I mean, the traveling part gets old going as much as sometimes, you know, it's 35, 38 weekends a year. Nice to be home, nice to be with the family, but, you know, when you're not at the track, there's some things that go on that you miss, but mostly what I do, it's all historical based anyway, so not being at the track's not really a big drawback.
One disadvantage, Russ, not going to Daytona, you can't go to the Boot Hill Saloon.
That's
right.
right.
That would be...
And no seafood. That's my highlight
Sitting
of
in the
Daytona.
pool in the sun, but other than that.
Yeah.
You are no stranger to racing yourself. You drove in go-karts and then moved and drove at Nashville for a while.
Raced in go-karts for 27 years and proud of that part of the career. Raced for 4 years in mini modifieds at Nashville, and I don't even consider that part of the career. It was a disaster.
Was that where you got the nickname Crash or Wipeout Thompson?
Well, you know, now that's not fair, Larry, because I only crashed twice. But
neither
gosh,
one were his fault, as I recall.
Well, yeah, the big one wasn't.
Wow.
But gosh, we had such bad luck, and I won the Hard Luck Award 2 years in a row. But it wasn't for crashing.
Yep. In a Rax roast beef sponsored car. How's
Rax
that?
in Opryland.
Yeah.
But like so many people around here, Russ, you grew up as a racing fan. As you say, you raced go-karts, then began to dabble in some of the amateur, you know, the hobby level events at the fairgrounds, and it just grew from there. Just kind of a labor of love that kind of turned into a pretty good profession for you, didn't
Absolutely. I had an uncle that was single, and he went to Daytona for the first time in 1953. Watched a lot of races on the beach. Went to Indianapolis in 1951. Well, single, and he owned his own business, so he went racing whenever he wanted to go. And from the time I could walk, he was taking me racing. And the thing that doing IndyCar like I do, having the accent that I have, people are surprised. Hey, you're from Nashville, but you know so much about IndyCars. Well, got to think back in the '60s, the two closest Cup tracks were Charlotte and Atlanta. You know, Indianapolis and DeCoin and Springfield was just as close to go from here in Nashville to watch IndyCar racing as it was to watch any kind of major NASCAR racing.
Do you have a preference? You've got a foot in both worlds, stock car and IndyCar, open wheel. Do you have a
IndyCar?
You like it better?
I do like it better.
I know, because you used to call me all the time and complain because we didn't cover enough IndyCar racing, so I kind of figured that. But why is that? What appeals to you? Just the finesse and the speed and the technology and engineering that all you yuppies enjoy so much?
Well, you know, I think a lot of it goes back to what you're first, you know, introduced to.
First love.
And the fact that, I mean, we would go, it was nothing for us to jump in the car Sunday morning, go to Salem, Indiana, and watch a sprint car race. And, you know, I can remember watching Parnelli Jones and that Fike Plumbing Sprinter come off turn 4 and a little wisp of blue smoke coming off that right rear tire. Man, as a 6-year-old, I was hooked. I mean, just hook, line, and sinker. I was done.
You saw them all.
I was lucky enough to see them all. I mean, I saw the Novi run at Indy. I saw the Turbine run at Indy. I've been incredibly lucky to see as much as I've seen.
Okay.
Who was your favorite? I mean, before Danica Patrick came along.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I mean, Andretti, Ford.
Without a doubt, Parnelli Jones.
Parnelli Jones.
Yeah, I mean, he was the guy driving that Fike Plumbing Sprinter, and I'll still put him up today against anybody that's ever sat in a race car.
I always liked Ford.
Wow.
What was your analysis of A.J. Ford?
Oh, great. I mean, great race car driver, but, you know, he and Parnelli were big rivals in the early 60s, so I never was an A.J. fan. And that's odd because one of the guys that helped get me started in a racing was a guy here in Nashville that owned an Indy car, and he gave A.J. Foyt his very first ride in an Indy car.
Who was that?
John Wills. 1957, John owned an Indy car, the Hoover Motor Express. And I'll tell you the story. They were at a race in Salem, Indiana, and John never went to the grandstands. I mean, he was always in the pits, had to have his hands in the middle of things, but they didn't have a car there. This was an IMCA race. So some of my family and all were there. Well, John sat in the grandstands with them and watched AJ drive, and he told him, he said, look at that kid. He said, he's driving the wheels off that piece of junk. He said, I'm going to hire him for my Indy car, and he did. And AJ drove 5 races in 1957 for a car out of Nashville, and then one of the major teams saw him and hired him for 1958. It was the Dean Van Line's car.
Plucked him right out.
Plucked him right out, and that's how AJ got started.
Who besides Russ Thompson would know that A.J. Foyt got his racing start with a Nashville angle?
And one of my favorite stories on that Nashville car is that John had his shop on Galton Road over in East Nashville. At 3:30 in the morning, they said it was nothing to see an Indy car whizzing up and down Galton Road. Now, wouldn't you have liked to have been out after a night drinking, driving home, and all of a sudden
The Indy car comes by.
you're like, oh, I'm done. I'm swearing off.
Did I just see what I thought I saw?
Yeah, but I mean, you know, how cool would that have been? But we're talking about back in the 50s.
With that background, Russ, were you surprised or not surprised, or what was your take on the IndyCar fleeing with Nashville Super Speedway? It just, for whatever reason, I thought it was a success. The fans loved it. The media loved it. Indy finally bailed out, I think, 2008 after 5 or 6 years. Why didn't it work? Just wrong place, wrong time? Or
no, I don't know why it didn't work. I mean, Firestone's based here.
Yep.
Firestone loved it.
Yep.
One of the major sponsors of the series. I've never understood why they went away.
Everybody seemed to like it. Like I say, the sponsors, the fans, the media, the drivers seemed to like coming in. But the IRL, for whatever reason, decided they...
But I mean, here are you two guys that are lifelong media people in Nashville. How much of a chance in 1999 or 2000 would either one of y'all have given of that race turning out to be the main event at the Super Speedway?
I was skeptical. I didn't think any racing would go over in stock car country, but I was wrong. It did, but still they bailed. They packed up and left after a while.
Yep.
You think we designed this, because that's where we're headed in the second segment to talk about the ground-sucking Widowmakers. We'll talk about that.
Is that an Indy car?
Too. That's an Indy car.
Good.
I got to figure out who came up with that years ago. But one of the other places that I'll bet you Russ has been, you've been to Highland Rim before, many, many times.
When it was dirt.
No, Russ, I'm not going there. There's a joke there. I'm not going to do it to you. But Highland Rim is asphalt now, and they're opening the season in the first part of April. Come join us at Highland Rim Speedway on Bethel Road, just up I-65. You get off there at Bethel Road, make a couple of turns, and you are there at the one place in Middle Tennessee where racing and family truly go together. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Indy cars. We'll figure out exactly what to call them so that we don't upset the folks at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Get it right. Right? We'll be back with more on Pit Pass.